Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be talking about the books that I read during the month of August. It was a very sort of weird month for me. It wasn't that good of a reading month, but you will see what I mean. I will just start really quickly. The first book that I read was Stephen King on writing. It's also his memoir, a part of his life, so we get to see his upbringing, what brought him to writing, and not only that, but by the kind of middle point of the book, he gets to dive into some writing tips for upcoming writers who want to be published. I am currently writing my book. I don't know where it's gonna go, but I was looking for advice, and I have to admit that I didn't find it that enlightening. More of it felt like, here's my process, here's what works for me, do what you will, which I understand and I get. However, I found that his process was very different from mine, and although I did get some tidbits of things that can be done, I didn't find it incredibly helpful. So I guess that what I'm trying to say is that this book may be helpful for you. Everyone writes differently, everyone has a different writing process, so I do think that everyone should give this book a try and see what they get out of it. However, I didn't get much of it, and I have to admit that I think that it's because I have never read any of Stephen King's books, so there are some references to his books, and I have yet to read his entire book collection. So yeah. However, I did find it, he has at the end of the book a book list of books that he enjoys and finds interesting, and I like that. I enjoyed that. So yeah. Then I did a buddy read with Alba from Seriella. We read together Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. So this book basically follows our main character, Donna. She is a woman that is currently living in the 1970s in, I think it's New York. But she gets, one of these days, she gets brought back in time to the 1815s, which is a time where there were people enslaved. So she basically finds herself in this plantation in Maryland, and when she arrives, there is this kid who is drowning and she runs to save him, and it's basically how she goes back and forth in time every time that this kid is in trouble. So I'm gonna leave it there. That's kind of the beginning of the book, but it was I found myself not wanting to pick up this book because it was at times very hard to read. However, I do think that is a very enlightening book, and you really do get to see from the perspective of this character just the atrocities that occurred in the 1800s and the times where people were enslaved. So it has very different, I'm trying not to talk about it without spoiling it, but I really did find this to be an amazing book. However, I did like Parable of the Sower better. I feel like I found Parable of the Sower to be a more engrossing kind of book. So I was just hooked, and I read it, I think, in like 2 days. This one, it took me a little bit of time just because of the themes discussed in this book and the things that happen and occur in the plot. So I do recommend it. It's an amazing book, an amazing story, and yeah, great book. Then I read Valette by Charlotte Bronte. This was one of the books that were in my list of books that I want to finish by the end of the year. And I was very excited because Charlotte Bronte is the author of one of my favorite books, Jane Eyre. And I felt like Jane Eyre was such an important and just very impacting book to me. It truly is one of my favorite books, so I was excited to see what else she wrote in her lifetime, and this was one of the books. It's a bit longer than Jane Eyre, and I'm not saying that this book was bad. I don't think it was. I just think that I had some issues with it, and I felt like I didn't enjoy it as much as Jane Eyre. This book follows our main character, Lucy Snow. She is basically, we get to follow at the beginning of the book that she is living with her godmother. We really don't know about her parents or their situation, but we know that she's currently living with her godmother, and because of situations that occur, she is forced to leave her godmother's house and find a situation for herself. So we get to follow her as she struggles to find a job and eventually finds herself in the city of Valette in France and begins to teach there English. So at first I was very interested in the book. I was very moved. I kind of knew the things that were going to happen just because of the description. We basically get to follow Lucy as she falls for a man that really doesn't feel the same way about her. And I loved how this book explored mental health and depression in those times, and I felt like Charlotte Bronte was incredibly prolific in describing depression and just how horrible it is and how lonely it can be. So yeah, I really did enjoy this book. I found myself feeling let down by the end. I'm not gonna go into detail because I feel like that would be spoilery, but I felt like the end was it was very ambiguous, which is something that I don't really enjoy. And another thing that I found to be kind of hindering was the fact that because the book is set in France for the most part, there is a lot of French in here, and I was constantly translating, and I think it's why also I took a long time reading this book. I think I took 2 weeks because there are passages of an entire conversations in French, so I had to go on my computer and translate them because they were important conversations. It's not just something that you can skim over and hope to pick up along the way. So yeah, that's a thing that you need to be mindful of when reading this book. Again, did enjoy it, didn't enjoy it as much as Jane Eyre, but I do recommend it. It's a good book. And finally, for the Rory Gilmore 24-hour readathon, which I will link the vlog that I did for that in the description and in a card up here, I read Mrs. Dalaway by Virginia Woolf. This book, I expected it not to be a very fun experience because I had already read To the Lighthouse and I didn't enjoy it. I found it extremely boring. And this book follows almost the same style, which I guess I have discovered that it's not my thing. This follows our main character, Mrs. Dalaway, and not only her, but her family and other people around town for the span of a day. So Mrs. Dalaway herself, she's trying to plan a party, and we get to follow her as she plans the party and the party itself. But through that process, we get to explore her past, the people that have been part of her life, the choices that she has made throughout her life, and even at times her own sexuality. So it was a very interesting book. It's just that I felt like I didn't enjoy it at all. I think that there must be a certain degree of enjoyment to give a book a good review, and although there were things that were, I guess, interesting in terms of themes discussed in the book, I didn't enjoy it at all, and I didn't connect with the characters. So yeah, this book also follows characters after the First World War and how they have come to see not only how they are currently in their lives, but also their mental health, especially with one character named Septimus, I think it was his name. So there's a lot explored in this short book, but yeah, I didn't enjoy it much. I think this will be my last Virginia Woolf book, but yeah. So those were all the books that I read for the month of August. Let me know if you have read any of these books and if you have enjoyed them and what you think of them. So yeah, I will see you guys with the next video. Bye.